Please be seated. It is my great joy to welcome you to Christ Church on this Trinity Sunday. It is my great joy to see sunshine outside, so thank you to everyone who's been working to prepare a bouncy castle and barbecue out on Rectory Street, and I hope you will all go directly from this service outside to celebrate the beginning of summer. There are lots of people whose hands have been hard at work this week to make this day a special one, and I thank them. Thank the choirs for their amazing work this year as we launch into what I hope will be a summer for all of us of refreshment and rest. I remind you that starting next Sunday, the 23rd of June, we will have one service of Holy Eucharist on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., and if the weather is fine, we will be outside for grace in the garden. If you remember from last year, Chris erects a beautiful big sail, and we're out in the shade, in the green grass with the birds trilling and some rotation of acoustic music, and I hope that you will join us for that, either every Sunday or whenever your schedules will allow. And now I would like to ask you all to please turn your attention to the center aisle. I would like to ask Bruce McLeod, Michelle Minks, George Whipple, and our own Susan Harris, please to come forward.
Here. Good morning. This is an amazing moment for me, as well as Chris. I was actually senior warden in 1993 and was involved in hiring Chris. And we all met him and said, wait a minute, why does he want this job given where he's coming from? And he looked and he gave that little smile of his and says, well, maybe that job isn't all it could be if I was around. And here we are. Kate did a great job of enumerating the things that Chris is in and what he's involved in. We are so richly blessed with this man, both as a person and as what I refer to in my corporate speak, Chief Operating Officer, which is exactly what he does around here. And I am sure that the two rectors that are up here would be the first to acknowledge that, which I think Kay did in a short time. And I think this young lady over here on the right might have a comment or two about that. But I consider it just the greatest blessing to have Chris as a friend and as somebody to work with on many assignments which I have done. And I am so thankful, and we should all be thankful.
Oh, sorry. It's okay. Chris, I started out thinking I would be clever or write a poem, and then I realized I would be saying that to someone who could stand here and recite Shakespeare, and that would be a little ridiculous. So instead, I'm going to speak from my heart, because the truth is, I adore you. The whole Altar Guild adores you. You are the most special person. All of us work harder because of you. You have taught us so much. You have taught me to be calm. When we were decorating the church for the seasons or when the flowers and I'm anxious, you say to me, Michelle, this church is decoration enough. And you're right. When I'm nervous about how we've set for a Sunday service, whether the linens are pressed, whether the silver's polished, you'll say, Michelle, we can celebrate the Eucharist with paper towels and crackers. And you're right. You're also the man who has such reverence for the Queen Anne chalice. You understand the importance she plays in our church's history. You understand what she represents for our church and for the family of our church. You are pretty good in a panic, though. There was the Christmas when everyone was due to arrive the next morning to decorate, and you suggested I call and ask when the delivery was going to be made of the Christmas greens, and, well, no one answered the phone, and no one answered the phone a little later, and, well, they had gone bankrupt, and they weren't there, and there were no greens, and Chris said, come on, we're going shopping, and out we went to the most bizarre places, 10 feet here, 20 feet there, 3 feet there, came back with a full card, the church was decorated, all was well. You have been an amazing teacher. You are a joy to work with. You have taught me and our whole altar guild, and I know many others in this room and beyond, the history of our church, the meaning of the pieces, what they represent, why they're important. You have taught me lessons about my family. You've taught me lessons about our church family. You've taught me about your precious family. Chris, one of my favorite sounds in this whole church is the jangling of your keys as you come, as he walks down the hall, because I know Chris is here and all is well. I love you.
Well, all I can say is after Kate's profound words, Bruce and Michelle, I get the last straw, so I'll do my best. But I've had the pleasure and the honor of knowing Chris for the 25 years he's been here, and it would probably take a good hour for all of us to really, really go into what he means to us, but I have a couple of little snippets. Number one is, you all know Chris is a jack of all trades and a handyman for just about everything you could think of. In the church, around the church, anything. Ask Chris. Number two, he's the ultimate tech guy. As all of you know, whether it's sound, whether it's video, whether it's lighting, anything you can think of that involves tech, it's not just Chris sitting in his little cave back there in the church. If you've ever seen his office, check it out. It's amazing what he can do. Number three, his relations with the city of Rye have helped us out so many times over the years. Just this past Thursday, when we were unloading some of the supplies for the picnic at 8:30 at night, who comes walking down the street but Kate, Chris, and Mary? They'd been talking with the City Council of Rye about parking issues and other things that affect the church. Never stops. And last, from my perspective, from the Parish Life Committee, Dan and I appreciate so much what Chris has done for every single event that we've planned over the years and has probably planned even before we were involved in the vestry. Nothing goes unnoticed. Everything is always prepared for. Chris is always way ahead of us. What can I do? What can I get? It's just amazing. So, and again, I could go on, but Chris, please know just how grateful, thankful, and appreciative we all are for what you and your lovely wife, Jackie, what you have done for our beloved Christchurch community over the last 25 years, and hopefully will continue to do for the next 25 years. So thank you, and we love you. I now have the honor of turning the microphone over to the Reverend Susan Harris, our Rector Emerita.
Thank you. So, out of 25 years, I got to work with Chris for 16, watching young Chris grow up, getting to know Jackie. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to try and lighten this up a little bit. Leaving here 3 years ago, I knew I had been blessed. I did not know I was also spoiled. I had not set an altar book in 16 years. 8 ribbons that all have to be in the right places or disaster ensues and the priest loses all her confidence. Chris always said it for me. In other churches, that does not happen. Also, did you know that other churches have body microphones, but there's no one there to put the batteries in and to check that they are full? Chris Thorne's the only person I've ever known who could say, "Let me come check your batteries," and make me wonder if he was flirting. Also, at Christ Church, if the rector is wearing the body microphone, she is permitted to sneeze or swear or make other bodily sounds because Chris has turned the microphone off unless she's speaking. They don't do that in other churches. Also, I do not do computers very well. I always have to ask for help. This man never once humiliated me or sighed or rolled his eyes, at least not as far as I could see. Not in my presence. Do you have any idea how honest this man is? I know he's a trained Shakespearean actor, but he does not lie. I can tell you for a truth that if he begins by saying, "honestly, it means either he's frustrated or he's trying to be tactful. It is totally redundant. I'm not sure the man knows how to be dishonest. Unless that story he told me about being a stunt man with a company called Havoc was whole cloth. It's true. See? But then there's also his tact, because a lot of honest people have honesty and no tact. That's not Chris Thorne. If you got to get bad news, this is the way you want to hear it, right here. About 10 years ago, on a weekend, one of my teenagers got into some pretty serious trouble. By the time I got here Sunday morning, word was filtering out, and I'm sure that he picked it up through Jackie's network of nieces and nephews embedded in Rye. She swears innocence. He slipped into the office, quietly closed the door, and said, "Is she okay?" In a very important moment for me, because I didn't know, she's fine. You have to go a long way to find a friend like that. Also, I do miss the spontaneous recitations of Monty Python sketches in staff meeting. You're not dead yet, and I'm not finished yet. This is a man you know by his deeds. My husband said this morning, some people show their love by what they do. All that business about the altar book. You know, he leads from the middle, this guy. It's because of Chris that the staff would go and buy 10 coats for the homeless at Christmas time. Chris's idea, Chris's follow-through. It was because of Chris that we served tomato soup and not just coffee after Superstorm Sandy for days on end. Chris's idea, Chris's trip to buy the stuff, Chris's follow-through. The staff would readily accept his influence. Sometimes. But then, you know, there were all those years when I kept a little distance around one touchy subject, which is I didn't know why he didn't receive communion. And I didn't pry. And he didn't say. And this went on. Easter after Easter, Christmas after Christmas. And I would glance up and wonder if maybe this would be the day, and it never was. And then came Colin Chapman and Tammy Burks and a whole different set of relationships. Talk about Trinity. There was one, Colin, Tammy, Chris. There was a whole different dynamic going on, and things were changing. And young Chris was due for confirmation. So Chris came to me and said, well, he told me the story that as a teenager, he had declined to be confirmed because of the usual reasons, lots of doubt about the faith. But in his case, his grandfather was a Church of England vicar. So, courage, check. Healthy skepticism about the faith and the church, check. Backbone, check. Loyalty to his own inner compass, check. And yet here was somebody who had been doing Christian deeds and saying Christian things every minute that I'd known him, and something changed. His own loyalty to his skepticism was outweighed by his openness to new experience and to love and to God. And so there you have it. He was confirmed. I was afraid the moment was so holy that the building would fall down, but that didn't happen. And it also didn't change his behavior, which was always deeply Christian. The other thing Ken said, Chris, is love is not love that alters when it alteration finds. Chris loves this church. He loves Jackie. I'm not going to set up an order. Not today, right? But Chris, you have to know that Christ Church loves you. Now, it's over.
It's the silver anniversary. To the angel of Rectory Street, the glue of Christ's church, our jack of all trades, stringer of lights and keeper of keys, repairer of the breach and of buildings and grounds, chief barista and battery changer, aficionado of all things IT, AV, and 3D, special effects wizard, graphic designer, and altar guild muse, photo documentarian, King Jamesian, Mr. Monk's Gate, animal, and altar guild wrangler. We thank you for 25 years of a loving, faithful service to God and Christ's church. And as a token of our esteem, please receive this gift. Thank you all who've contributed to this gift for Chris and for being here to celebrate him today. And do you want to say anything, Mr. Shakespeare?
I'm lost for words. It doesn't happen very often. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let us walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself for us, an offering and sacrifice to God.